Good afternoon, folks. Dennis Jr. here with Zager Guitars in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm with my father, Denny Sr., out behind the guitar shop. I thought we'd do a little video. I have had a lot of customers, I see this online too, asking, isn't Zager Easy Play just a good setup? And I'm going to go over some differences here, and maybe you guys can judge for yourselves at the end. But basically, what a guitar setup does, and guitar centers do this, and a lot of different shops do this, but basically, they just lower the strings closer to the fretboard, so you don't have to press quite as hard to form chords. That's what they do. It's just lowering the strings to the fretboard. When you look at a Zager guitar, and I hear this from customers all the time, and we have, customers all over the place with their high-level Taylor, high-level Martin who've had those guitars set up, and they always wonder, why doesn't my high-level Martin or Taylor as easy to play as my Zager? And I'll just go into a few of the things here that make the Zagers a little bit different. First of all, one of the big factors that make our guitars play much easier. Yes, we do lower string heights, but the big thing that makes our guitars play much easier involves down here at the face of the guitar, and that is the bracing system that we use. And it's taken my father and my grandfather and my great-grandfather about 100 years to develop this bracing system to what it is today. But the bracing system actually gives just a little bit. And what this means is, when you're going here to push down to form a chord, you don't have to press nearly as hard. So not only are we lowering string heights like the setup shops do, but our bracing system is entirely different, meaning you have to press literally 50% as hard to form chords on our guitars. And what this means for the beginning player, if you're just starting out playing, you have no muscle or dexterity in your fingers yet. This means that, they say 9 out of 10 players, would-be players, give up playing because of finger pain and soreness. That is a huge factor in what makes our guitars so much easier to play. So that's one big thing. Other big thing, our neck design. I call this our 55-year neck design because it's taken us 55 years of testing and designing to get this neck to what it is today. And we've sent our guitars out to the best players in the world, and we always get feedback from these players of how we could make it better. And we're on 55 years on this neck, and I'm not going to say it's a wider neck or narrow neck. It's very slim from front to back. Some might call it more of a custom low oval C shape if you're into guitar stuff that way. But it's taken us 55 years to get to this neck it's unlike anything out there on the market. I hear from customers all the time who say, I've never held a neck like that. It feels very natural in your hands, like basically an extension of your arm, and that's what we were going for. But so when someone says Zager is just a setup, no. Not only do we have our custom bracing system, which literally makes the strings 50% softer and easier to hold down, but now we're talking a different neck design entirely. Now we'll get into string spacing. If you look at our guitars, if you've ever played and you've ever tried to go for certain chords, you'll find sometimes you're leaning on adjacent strings when you don't want to be. On our guitars, you're not going to have this issue because we have a custom spacing system on our guitars, all the way from top to bottom here. And what this allows for is, so when you're trying to form chords and leaning on strings, you're not going to have that issue nearly as much with our guitars. And it's really hard to see just looking at it visually, but the minute you get your hands on it, and again, I hear this from beginners, I hear this from our top pro players, that when they're going to form chords, instantly they're making chords that have given them decades of trouble on our guitars that they weren't able to do on their other guitars. So now we have a little bit different in spacing here. And again, this is 50, 60, 70 years of research here of dialing this in, sending our guitars to players all around the world and getting feedback. That spacing also makes a difference down here over the sound hole. If you're a finger style guitarist, it's going to make a world of difference to you to have this spacing just a smidgen wider. Now you can't go too wide naturally because you're going to be pulling strings off the fretboard. And again, this is all dialed in exactly for this neck size, our string height, and then put in with our string spacing. So 3 very, very valuable things there. Now we get into fret material and fret size and fret shape. All of these are custom on our guitars. We use a little bit softer fret material on our guitars. We use a very soft nickel. There's a lot of companies these days using stainless on their necks, and stainless frets tend to put off a little bit tinnier of a sound than nickel does. Nickel, again, it provides a little bit deeper, richer sound than stainless. So we go with nickel, and it's a little softer material that it doesn't bite into your fingers. So not only do we have, again, the bracing system, the custom neck design, the spacing up and the spacing down, we also have a different fret material and a different fret size and shape. This is all custom to our guitars that makes them easier to play. Now you say, a setup though, and I hear this often from customers, a setup can be set up exactly to your playing style. And that's true to a point. But our guitars, a lot of people don't know this, and you know it if you've bought a Zager before, our guitars have a special adjustment setting that only takes 5 seconds that adjusts the string height exactly to your playing style. Many times you'll have players that hit the strings harder and some that play really lightly, like my father does. If you're a heavier handed player, you can dial our guitars in 5 seconds to set it up exactly to where you like it. And again, if you're a light touch player that moves fast, you notice we've got some of the biggest artists in the world now using our guitars, and those guys typically dial them down so string height is the lowest. And again, I'm only diving into about 5, 6, 7 of the main things here that make our guitars different. But when customers or anyone says, Zager is just a setup is simply lowering strings. Our guitars are designed from the ground up entirely different. They're designed for playability. So think about that when you're playing. And the last thing I want you to think about is, and this is very important, when you buy a guitar, and I hear this from customers literally daily, I have guys who go out and they'll spend 4, 5, 6, 7,000 on a high-end guitar, Martin, Taylor, Fender, Gibson, you name it, and they say, I'm going to go in and have it set up so it plays easy, maybe like my Zager. A lot of these customers already own Zagers, and they go in, spend the money, spend the 4 or 5,000 on the guitar, then they go have the guitar set up, spend another $200-300, and the guitar comes back to them not as easy to play as they wanted. And it's certainly, they're never as easy to play as our guitars because, again, they're not set up, they're not designed from the ground up for playability. The problem with that is, though, you have no guarantee at that point, meaning you've bought the guitar, you've put work into the guitar, now you cannot return the guitar. And this has been a thing in the guitar industry for over 100 years now. It's literally like a dirty little secret. Guitar manufacturers work with their dealers, like Guitar Center, places like that, and shops, and they make millions and millions of dollars annually off this, meaning when you buy a $5,000 guitar and assume it's going to play easier after you have it set up and it doesn't, you're stuck with that guitar. You cannot return that guitar. So they've been working hand in hand for decades like this. And you'll see a lot of shops, I mean, I've heard things said about our guitars where shops don't like our guitars. The reason shops don't like our guitars is, for one, my dad doesn't allow our guitars to be sold in retail stores. And that means if you were to see them in retail stores, you'd be paying double what you see them when you buy them direct from us. And again, we're taking business from the guitar shops as well, in that our guitars don't need to be set up. And if you buy a guitar from Zager and it's not easy to play like we say it is, you get 100% of your money back, including shipping both ways. You're not stuck with a $5,000 guitar that you've already put work into that you can no longer return. So those are just some things to think about. I hear, again, this from customers all the time, and I think about all the thousands, literally millions of dollars that these manufacturers and dealers are making because you have customers out there stuck with guitars that they're not as playable as they wanted them to be, but they can't return them. So with us, that's just not how we operate, and I think that's why our guitars are rated why they are, and why you see the thousands and thousands now of glowing reviews and the big name artists using our guitars. So I just want to go over this briefly as I see this question a lot on forums and things like that. But if you have any other questions, don't be afraid to call or email. We're here to help 7 days a week. All right, take care, folks.